The Wuthering Waves 2.4 update has brought in a new story, a new region, and most importantly, a new resonator. After seeing Cartethyia back during 2.0, we can finally pull for her. She's unique in more ways than one, and if you've been looking for a guide on her, I got you. We have a lot of info to cover, so let's not waste any time and dive right into it. If you are debating on pulling for Cartethyia, her strengths do include, number one, being the premier Aero Erosion DPS. Not only can she proc the debuff, but some of her attacks actually scale off of Aero Erosion. And lastly, even though she does have a high skill ceiling, there is high reward with the amount of damage she can put out. The only downside at the moment is that she has a limited support roster. One big thing about Cartethyia is that her entire kit actually scales off of HP for her damage versus attack. For Cartethyia's combat roles, she falls under a main damage dealer with being able to apply Aero Erosion, buffs arrow damage, and also has traction to pull targets into a specific position. And here are all the materials you're going to need to get her up to max level. For other material, we're looking for the Tidal Resonum, which can be found on a lot of the humanoid type echoes around Raguna, and there's a lot of them. For the flower, we're looking for Bamboo Iris, which we can find around Septimont using collection spots. For our Overlord boss material, you're actually going to have to make your way to Septimont to fight the new Lioness of Glory for the Unfading Glory material. Or you can buy it at the Silver Helmet store in the city. For what skills to prioritize upgrading first on Cartethyia, definitely her Forte circuit. After that, your Resonance Liberation, your normal attack, Resonance skill, then lastly, intro skill. And here are all the materials you're going to need to upgrade all of these skills. For the metallic drip material, your best bet is to do forgery challenges, specifically Garden of Salvation in the 2.0 area, because it will also drop the Tidal Resonum material. And for our weekly boss material, of course, you're going to have to fight Fleurdelys for When Irises Bloom. To maximize Cartethyia's damage, we need to understand exactly how her kit works, especially since it scales off of HP. So if we go under skill details, as you can see, literally every skill scales off of HP, which is quite interesting. Obviously, one of the big things is having Cartethyia transform into Fleurdelys so we can do a lot of damage, but there are a couple things we need to set up before that. If you recall, during the 2.2 story, there were 3 swords that Cartethyia used, and if you look at her Forte bar, each one is there. Each one of those swords is associated with a different attack. So if you do her basic attack 4, again, you'll deal arrow damage, inflict arrow erosion, and you'll spawn that middle sword. If you use her heavy attack, which is considered basic attack damage, or her intro skill, it will spawn the sword on the left. And if you use her resonance skill, which is considered basic attack damage, again, you'll deal arrow damage, inflict arrow erosion, and you'll spawn the sword on the right. Now that all 3 sword icons are up, all you have to do is use your midair plunge attack, which is really cool since the resonance skill automatically puts you in midair, which means you can recall all 3 of these swords at once, dealing a lot of damage. Note that the swords can only stay on the field for 20 seconds, but if you do all 3 of these attacks right and you do the plunge attack, you'll notice that the icons on the swords actually change. Now they have a swirling animation around them. The reason you want all 3 of these swords active is because they each give a different bonus when Cartethyia changes over to Fleurdelys. Now we could talk about the Resonance Liberation. So when you change over to Fleurdelys, it will cost 50% of your HP. If you have less than 50%, it won't consume it, which is totally fine. You'll enter the manifest state and trigger arrow erosion damage. Not only does Fleurdelys have her own movesets, including a basic attack 5, a heavy attack, 2 resonance skills, which can all be chained into midair attacks, pretty much allowing her to fly around the map. But you can freely switch between her Fleurdelys and Cartethyia form as long as the Resonance Liberation icon is glowing white. Granted, if you're in battle, you're mainly going to stay in the Fleurdelys form anyway, but take note that if you're in the Fleurdelys form and the symbol is not glowing anymore and you switch back to Cartethyia, you cannot switch back to Fleurdelys, so keep that in mind. When you change forms, her Forte bar also changes to what's called Conviction, and as long as you hit targets with any of the attacks that I mentioned, it will charge it up. Once it's full, you can perform her Resonance Liberation finisher, Blade of Howling Squall, which has the coolest and craziest animation and after effects in the game, in my opinion. This attack will end manifest, transforming you back into Cartethyia. You'll restore 50% of your max HP and deal arrow damage to all targets in the area. Upon hitting the target, it removes all stacks of arrow erosion, and with each stack removed, it amplifies the damage taken by the target by 20% up to 5 stacks, which means you can do 100% more damage to the target. When our concerto is full and you're ready to switch out Cartethyia, now we can talk about the outro skill, Wind's Divine Blessing. So arrow damage dealt by the active resonator in the team other than Cartethyia and Fleurdelys to targets with negative statuses is amplified by 17.5% for 20 seconds, which is going to be good for Arrow Rover, Chacona, and Alto, which more than likely you're going to be applying arrow erosion anyway, so this bonus is pretty nice for those characters. For our first inherent skill, A Heart's Truest Wishes, the healing received by all resonators other than Cartethyia and Fleurdelys in the team is increased by 20%, and the resistance to interruption is also enhanced. If Arrow Rover is on the team, They also additionally restore 25 wind strings, which is their Forte, upon casting Omega Storm, which is their Resonance Liberation. And her second inherent skill, which is very nice, Wind's Indelible Imprint. Targets with 1 to 3 stacks of Aero Erosion take 30% more damage from Cartethyia and Fleurdelys, and targets with more than 3 stacks additionally take 10% more damage for each stack of Aero Erosion. They have up to 3 stacks. So Aero Erosion by itself automatically has 3 stacks, so that's 30%. But if you use Aero Rover, you can have those stacks go up to 6, which means you can have a 60% damage bonus, which is nuts. And for her left and right column stat bonuses, we have crit rate percentage and HP percentage. I know that was a lot of information, so if you're still a little bit confused, let me break it down into a simple damage rotation. First up, you're going to be using your healer and your sub DPS to build a Concerto to then be able to give Cartethyia more buffs. In my case, I'm using Aero Rover and Chacona. Aero Rover's outro allows you to have 3 more stacks of Aero Erosion leading up to 6, and Chacona can apply a lot of Aero Erosion, which is going to help buff Cartethia's damage overall. If you don't have those characters, again, don't worry, I'm going to be talking about team comps later. The main thing is that whenever you're ready to switch over to Cartethyia and use her intro skill, you're gonna spawn that left sword in her Forte bar automatically. Now, if you're not using the intro skill, that's totally fine. You can just use the heavy attack to still spawn that first sword. After that, you're going to want to use your basic attack 4 to spawn the second sword on her Forte bar. And number 3, use her resonance skill, which will put you in midair, spawn the third sword, and then use that midair plunging attack to recall all 3 swords. So now your Forte bar should have all 3 swords with the swirling animation around them. Now that we have all 3, it's time to use our Resonance Liberation and transform into Fleurdelys. Now at this point, you can use any of her attacks to fill up her Forte bar. Note, with her basic attack 5, it will stagnate the enemy, which is really cool. And note, with her 2 resonance skills, the first one will put you in the air, which will allow you to use the basic attack in midair, and then using the resonance skill again will have you plunging back toward the ground. But essentially, use the basic attack 5, use the heavy attack, and use the resonance skill to build up the Forte bar so we can use the Resonance Liberation finisher. After that, she'll transform back into Cartethyia, your Concerto should be full, and now we can use her outro skill. As a side note, there definitely is a quick swap playstyle with her, Chacona, and Aero Rover, since all of their outro buffs are universal for the full team. They're not specifically for one character, so you can kind of switch in between them, but I do recommend doing Aero Rover, going into Chacona, and then lastly going into Cartethyia and doing all of her main attacks. For Cartethia's best sword options, you definitely want her signature Defier's Thorn because of the HP bonuses. You get a flat attack and an HP percentage bump in the main stat, which is the first of its kind, and with its perk, a free Knight's Tarantella, note this is at rank 1, you get a max HP increase of 12%, 15 seconds after casting your intro or basic attacks. It ignores 8% of the target's defense when dealing damage. If the target has at least 1 stack of Aero Erosion, the damage taken by the target is amplified by 20%. Now I know what some of you are thinking, why go for her signature sword when other swords have crit rate and crit damage as the main stat? The issue is that those swords mainly scale with attack, which Cartethia's kit does not do. It scales with HP, so even though you're going to have to get pretty lucky on your stats, on your echoes, her signature is 100% worth it. You get the flat attack and crit rate percentage bump, and with its perk, even though it does give you an attack percentage, the main thing is that when dealing basic attack damage, which a lot of Cartethia's kit does, the wielder gains 10% basic attack damage bonus for 14 seconds. This effect can be triggered once per second, stacking up to 3 times. You don't get the second half because she doesn't consume her own Concerto like Camellia does, but this sword is okay. You could technically use Brand Signature Unflickering Valor, even though it does give an energy regen percentage in the main stat. It does give you a crit rate bump with its perk, and when you use your Resonance Liberation, it gives you a basic attack damage bonus, so it's pretty good. If you use Blazing Brilliance or Emerald of Genesis, the only thing you're going to get out of it is the stats. Most of the perk is not going to help out her kit, so keep that in mind. If you don't have any 5-star options, we do have a couple of other swords we can use. First up being Looming Gloss from the Battle Pass. Even though you get a flat and an attack percentage bump with the main stat, the main thing with the perk Pale Gale is that when you cast your Resonance skill, it gives you a basic attack damage bonus. If you played during 1.4 and got the Somnoir Anchor, this one's okay as well. Even though you do get a lot of attack percentage bumps, the main thing is that at 10 stacks of the perk Meow, you do get a crit rate increase of 12%, which you're going to have a decent amount of on-field time with Cartethyia switching between her forms. The only other sword that comes with HP percentage as the main stat is the 3-star sword, Guardian Sword. For Cartethia's best echo set, we're looking at the new Windward Pilgrimage set. This is one of the 2 new Sonata effects we got with the 2.4 update. Some of the old echoes come with the set, but a lot of them are with the new ones, which are in the Septimont area. You can use 5-piece Gust of Welkin as a substitute while you're farming out the set, but the main reason it's so good is because at 2 pieces, you get a 10% arrow damage bump, and at 5 pieces, hitting a target with Aero Erosion increases crit rate by 10% and grants 30% arrow damage bonus lasting 10 seconds. The main thing is that crit rate bump, which is very nice. For our echoes, this is the first time I'm absolutely recommending you use 2 4 cost and 3 1 cost echoes. For a 2 4 cost in the main slot, you're going to want Reminiscent Fleurdelys, and in the second slot, you're going to want the new Nightmare Kelpie, which can be found in Septimont, one with crit rate and one with crit damage. It doesn't matter which one has it. And then for your 3 1 cost echoes, HP percentage, because remember, her kit scales off of HP. The reason you want to use Reminiscent Fleurdelys is because as long as you have this echo in your main slot, you can get a total arrow damage bonus of 20%. For our echo substats, we're looking at crit rate and crit damage, HP percentage, basic attack damage, and lastly, energy regen. For Cartethia's best team options, pairing her up with Aero Rover as your healer, and then Sanhua buffing basic attack damage is pretty good. Even replacing Sanhua with somebody like Alto, if you got your hands on him, is good because he buffs arrow damage. But Cartethia's premium team at the moment is pairing her up with Chacona and Aero Rover. Rover's outro skill lets you apply 6 stacks of arrow erosion. Chacona can build up those stacks very quickly, and Cartethyia pretty much gets a free damage bonus the more stacks you have, so the amount of damage she's going to do by the time you get to her is going to be nuts. And since the Rejuvenating Glow attack buffs doesn't really buff Cartethyia, you can switch Aero Rover to the new Windward Pilgrimage just to get some more DPS out of them. But if you want to play it safe, you still can use Shorekeeper as your healer. Cartethyia won't be able to get the attack bonuses, but she can still benefit from the crit rate, the crit damage, and the healing. Lastly, let's talk about Cartethia's Resonance Chain, and is it worth getting multiple copies of her? S1, Crown Destined by Fate. Now, there's a lot of information here, but essentially, you can apply more arrow erosion, more stacks, and you could get a total 100% crit damage bonus for her Resonance Liberation finisher, which does reset after the attack. S2, Blade Broken by Tempest. Again, a lot of information here, but essentially, when you change over to Fleurdelys, you can actually have the arrow erosion stack limit go up to 6, which means you don't necessarily need Aero Rover, and you get a bunch of damage multipliers for a lot of her attacks. S3, Prisoner Hanged in the Tower. Essentially, all of the Fleurdelys attacks that you do can now inflict 2 stacks of arrow erosion, and you get a 100% damage multiplier to that Resonance Liberation finisher, so that's a lot of damage. S4, Sacrifice Made for Salvation. This one is interesting. So after Resonators in the team inflict any of the debuffs, which do include the new debuffs we are going to get in the future, all Resonators in the team gain a 20% damage bonus for all attributes for 20 seconds. So you pretty much gain an all attribute damage bonus. S5, Hope Reshaped in Storms. Essentially, you can survive a fatal blow, gain a shield, and use less HP when you go into the Fleurdelys form. And lastly, S6, Freedom Found in Storm's Wake. Again, a lot of information, but essentially, this eliminates her reliance on the persistent arrow erosion stacks from other characters, and while she's in the Fleurdelys mode, she just gets a flat 40% damage bonus to enemies. Overall, S1 is good. You get a 100% crit damage bonus for her main DPS skill, which is obviously going to be nice. S2, allowing you to have 6 stacks of arrow erosion without Aero Rover is nice, plus the multipliers for a lot of her attacks is just going to increase her damage overall. S3 is the best stopping point for spenders in my opinion, because this one, you get the massive damage bonus to her Resonance Liberation finisher, and obviously, if you want to go all the way to S6, you're going to have a broken Cartethyia. I was a little skeptical after I heard that her kit and damage scaled off of HP, because who the heck even does that? And even though her Resonator roles in team comps are pretty niche, I can safely say the amount of damage she could put out, even with just my S1 Cartethyia, is absolutely insane, even without needing to use Shorekeeper. Like, obviously, we all know Shorekeeper is great, but Kuro Games is like, hey, you know what? We're actually going to make a character that doesn't need that to boost her damage. You're going to have to get a little more creative with your teams. And the other thing is that I didn't really enjoy using Aero Rover a lot. Him as a healer is not as fun, in my opinion, but him with Chacona and Cartethyia right now is actually extremely fun. It's nice not having to use Shorekeeper for literally every endgame team option. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. How are you liking Cartethyia? How are your pulls going? And are you going to be saving for Lupa? I know for myself, I 100% am for the second half of this update. I love fusion characters, and I really enjoyed her personality during the story when I did my playthrough. In any event, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on any other Wuthering Waves content we have coming out here on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream here on YouTube and then also over on Twitch. That link will be in the description. I typically stream Wuthering Waves whenever we have a new update, there's a new event, or a new banner is out, and usually there's always drops available as well, so if you want some extra materials, be sure to tune on into the stream. Also, if you want to join my community, hop in my Discord. That link will also be in the description. We have plenty of people talking about Wuthering Waves, other gacha games, and then plenty of other topics including gaming, tech, and anime. Lastly, if you want to help support the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. Now, if if you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription, but it's technically cheaper. You're going to gain access to exclusive emotes, monthly badges, and the main benefit, which is getting access to all of my long form videos early. So if you would like some more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and I'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next video.